All right, so I ran into something as I was simulating. I only simmed a few days. All of our free agents so far have signed. We're still negotiating with Aroldis Chapman. The Giants came in on on him and offered him a little bit more money. Will Hamels hasn't looked at our offer yet, and I think Hector Rondon just is still mulling over offers. But I was messing around with some stuff. I was looking at a screen that I've never actually found before uh, that showed me all this team stats, and we had like the fourth fewest hits allowed, the most runs, all that crap, and then I saw 15th in defensive efficiency, and I was looking into trading a couple of different guys on our roster, and I kind of just shopped around some backup guys and guys I wasn't really going to use, and I found this interesting trade. So Steven Moya, our backup, we traded for last year as a 70 right field rating, but is a kind of mediocre hitter. We He's going to be up for arbitration next season. He had a 90 OPS plus for us last season in the fill-in duty that he had, actually a little bit more than I would have liked. And in return, we get Trace Thompson, who is a slightly better hitter, had a 823 OPS plus in 196 plate appearances last year. He was a 99 OPS plus in 273 a couple years before. You can take a look here. He hasn't been the greatest major leaguer, but he has definitely shown some flashes, and I think that even at 28 years old, by the start of next season, he could potentially improve still a little bit. He expects to be a bench player. He has a 70 right field rating, 75 outfield arm, 65 range, so he could still get better as a fielder, and he's on a longer-term deal. So it's a little bit risky. If I can find where that is right here. Contract and status. So at the end of this deal, it gets a little pricey. He just signed this extension in this offseason for about $23 million over 5 years. Not the biggest deal. Last year is a little bit pricey. We can always trade him or cut him before then to not have to necessarily worry about that part of the deal. But he's a better defender, and I think that a couple of those two outfield positions and shortstop are really where we struggle defensively. Candelario didn't have the greatest year on defense, but he had a very solid rookie season. He was a positive defender in his rookie season. He's just had a really weird year this last year where he was almost a -3 in the field. So I'm going to be making this trade for Trace Thompson. Even though the money is a little much, I think that it gives us a little more flexibility with our roster, as Steven Moya was a guy who was going to sit in the minors anyway because of all the free agent moves that we made. And Trace Thompson's actually really good from the locker room. Trace has the heart of a lion, it says. And it says a small clubhouse secret has been that a few players have not been getting along. The hope around the clubhouse is that bringing Trace Thompson will prevent things from getting any worse. So I'm going to try and find that screen again and see if it shows. Yeah, here. I've never looked at this screen before. So earned run average was 14th. Starters ERA was 15th. Bullpen ERA was 14th. Runs allowed was 15th. But hits allowed, home runs allowed, and walks and strikeouts were all top 5 pretty much. Bases on balls was 6th. But defensive efficiency, I think, is what killed us this last season. And we did have a couple guys who had down years. That's definitely for certain. But with the offense we have, I feel that we do have a couple of expendable pieces, because cumulatively we had a 792 OPS, and some guys might not have as good of years as they last year, but other guys might improve. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. We had the most extra base hits, most home runs, fewest stolen bases, or second fewest stolen bases, but that's not something I'm ever concerned about. It also gave me a month-by-month breakdown, which kind of shows you what I meant by last season. We had a weird start finish. So our team was really good against left-handed pitching, which isn't a surprise because we have a ton of right-handed hitters. We had an 18-13 record in one-run games. We started out hot in April, kind of slowed down in May, had a good month of June, decent July and August, and then we kind of slipped in September and October. We went 13-17 overall, and we almost missed the playoffs. And actually came down to the last day of the season anyway. We had to play a game. The only game we won in October was that extra game this past season. But I don't think we're going to be winning the division this year anyway, so any help we can get on defense, I think, is going to... I would gladly take a hit to the offense, because there's no reason that we should be allowing the 4th fewest hits in the American League, but the 15th, I guess there's 16 teams in the AL, so the second most runs in the AL. And you can take a look right here at our fielding ratings. We have, like, Ryan Schimpf has a 932 defensive efficiency. That is horrendous. And if you take a look here, he was a minus 12 in the field. He was a very good hitter, but we have a DH in Wilmer Flores already. And I think that we could potentially replace the production of Ryan, maybe not replace the production of Ryan Schimpf because he played out of his mind, but I mean, any like common knowledge would show that this was a total aberration. Like, yeah, he puts in long hours, he's good for the clubhouse and everything, but he doesn't have very good ratings. I'm probably going to hold on to him for this next season because I'm not 100% sold on Braxton Davidson just stepping right in, even though he did have a good end of the season last year, like a ridiculous end of the season. I'm not ready to accept him just stepping into a new role and like excelling in it because it's not realistic to think. So yeah, Schimpf really just hasn't fit in anywhere defensively. He's only got this is just gonna be his 3rd year, I guess, or 4th year. So he does have a couple more years of team control left. So might hold on to him, but I think that shoring up our defense is definitely something that we needed to do, especially if we're going to keep playing a guy like Ryan Schimpf. The other guy I was looking at getting rid of was, or at least replacing, was Jonathan VR, because he does have good speed, and outside of that, all of his stats are kind of low. I think he really outperformed his stats last year. He's worth 2 wins. But if you take a look right here, he was a -4, 4.13 range factor, defensive efficiency in 998, which isn't the worst, but it's definitely not the greatest at shortstop this past season. And I think that we can do a little bit better. He also wanted a lot of money this past offseason, and we only have a couple years of team control left over, and we actually, two years of team control left over Jonathan VR. He's really good in real life at shortstop, but I definitely think that if we can improve defensively at that spot, it would be of our benefit because actually, again with the aberration years, if you take a look at his career fielding stats at shortstop, he was a -3 the first year of this franchise, and he was a -11 last year in terms of zone rating. So I think that we can definitely, -14.8 in his career total with a 980 defensive efficiency. So I think that we can improve a little bit. So if I make any more trades from that perspective, it is definitely going to be to shore up our defense. But let's put, why is all this so screwed up? I had this set up a certain way and I messed up all of it. There. So Trace Thompson is going to be placed on our active roster. And I think we're going to give Braxton Davidson a little more time to marinate in the minor leagues because I don't know if we play him all year, he's definitely not going to have a 195 OPS plus. But if you take a look right here, he was horrendous in right field when we played him there because he has no experience. But he has an average left field rating, and his ratings actually are going to be better than Ryan Schimpf's by the time this all shakes out. Except for contact, that's going to be, I think, the same, maybe a little bit higher. But if you take a look at his fielding stats in the minor leagues, he played 934 innings in the field and had a positive defensive efficiency as well as zone rating. And in previous years, we'll see how it worked out as well. It doesn't have it because actually he moved from single A to... did it not record any... It didn't record any defensive stats between 2015 and 2016. Alright, that's strange. But, so it must not record minor league stats for fielding in this. I might not have this setting on, but I think we'll give him a little more time in the minors to develop. He's not going to be ever a great fielder, I don't think anyway, because he doesn't have very good defensive stats. But I think that he's better off there than in right field. Better off in left field than in right field, and we're actually going to set his position back to left field and this and see. Yeah, he's actually already gone up half a star, so we'll give him a little bit more time in the minors, and if we find a trade for Schimpf, then we definitely have an option in Braxton Davidson. So Alright, so we have a couple of trades here that I talked about just a minute ago. I recorded it yesterday, so I'm trying to remember exactly what I said, but it was something to the effect of I want to improve the defense at a couple of key spots. Our outfield defense is very weak. We basically played last season with a subpar right fielder, center fielder, and left fielder defensively. So now we have a couple of guys that are expendable. So I think I said I want to season Braxton Davidson a little bit more. I think we're going to groom him into a left fielder and then see if we can potentially get anything for Ryan Schimpf next offseason, or keep Braxton Davidson as like injury protection. But the first trade we have is Albert Almora. We basically played last season without a center fielder, and I know we did acquire Malik Smith, but if you take a look at Malik Smith, who is actually going to be more than likely part of another deal that we do in just a second here, if you take a look at Malik Smith, I passed him on accident. He is a 3.5-star player. He's got good contact and good eye discipline. They're above average, and his speed and stealing is very good. But he declined to a center field 50, and his outfield range and error went down by 5 as well. So I'm a little concerned about that. He also didn't have the greatest hitting year. He was alright, but in 204 plate appearances for Atlanta, he had a 360 OBP and a 116 OPS. And defensively, I think he wasn't very good for Atlanta. He was okay in a few innings in center field for us, but with those ratings declining, I'm not entirely sure that he is going to be an effective player going forward. As you can actually see, his career center field numbers are negative in the major league level, because you can see -3 zone rating, 981 defensive efficiency right there. So yeah, and we're going to save a little bit of money doing this because Almora this year is making $509,000. He has good contact, good gap power, not great discipline or home run power, but he does avoid Ks, which is good. He also hasn't completely fulfilled his potential at this point. He has a 70 center field rating. His outfield error is his weakest, but he has good range or like elite range and arm. Like 70 grade is really awesome, and he actually had a good year hitting for the Cubs. Now, I'm not expecting this to maybe be the case going forward. He hasn't had the greatest years in the past, but I feel that the defense, more than anything else, we basically played last season without a center fielder. We had Joey Ricard, who's a pretty above average defender, but we had like 35 plate appearances of Malik Smith, and then a ton of injuries swiped our team. So I do want to build a little bit of depth, but we have a bunch of garbage pretty much in this trade that we're giving up for Albert Almora. So this guy is a 2-star catcher. The OSA doesn't like him very much either. He is 21 years old. He's projected to be, let's go look at the head scout. He's projected to have a good eye and be a decent defensive catcher, but again, nothing special by any stretch. Juan Diaz was a backup for us. He was like the player I needed to complete this trade, basically. Or no, Ivan Vidal was the player I needed to complete this trade. He's been a guy that I've liked for a while, but his stats have just never panned out into what I felt he should be. He's 27 at this point, so there's probably really no progression for him, and it actually only has his stats from like the last season. I thought we had him for, maybe we did just sign him last off season, but he was up at the major league level and he made 11 starts, had a 1.35 whip, and then he went to the minors and played even worse in 18 starts. So larger sample size of him being worse against lesser talent. As you can hear my phone timer or alarm going off in the background. Sorry about that. I had an alarm go off a couple days ago too. It was somebody else's, but still, and not anything you guys aren't used to right now. And then we got this guy Paul Castillo, who was a minor league free agent signing apparently this past season or in this off season. He's very unhappy for some reason. He's 20 years old, and he has 3-star potential, but most of that is tied into his defensive ratings. He already has a 60 center or an 80 center field rating and a 60 left field rating, but he had a weak arm and he has a bad error rating. He's never going to progress into a very good hitter, and he had a 582 OPS for us, but he does have 3-star potential. Renato Nunez is a guy I've held on to for a while as a potential valuable trade chip because teams are really interested in him for whatever reason. He has been a solid minor league hitter. He's been at AAA each of the last 3 years, and he probably does deserve He'd probably just deserve a promotion, and he was actually a pretty effective first baseman. I wonder if he can be a replacement for Scott Van Slyke, actually, if we can take him out of this trade. Because we're probably not going to hold on to Scott Van Slyke next season, but we can always move Schimpf there if we do hold on to him. I mean, it would be like his 4th defensive position in as many years. Well, actually, no, this will be the 2nd year of him playing left field in a row. But Albert Almora, excellent defensively. Renato Nunez, did I miss anybody? No, I didn't. All right, so we're going to complete this trade. And now we have one more trade that we have pretty much done, and this is a little bit bigger of a trade in terms of the prospect capital, but we are like just the capital in general. This is a full trade too, and I don't know if he's going to accept, the New York GM is going to accept this, but we are taking on quite a bit of salary in this trade because they could not afford Malik Smith and Jonathan VR if we did not take the contract of Yu Darvish back. So take a look at VR. Pretty average, below average actually. He has decent infield range, arm, and turn double play, but he is a mediocre shortstop and second baseman. He has a decent eye, but he's terrible at avoiding strikeouts. His good speed, but bad base running. He had a 762 OPS this past season. He was very good the year before as well, but I actually have more wins above replacement this season. But if you take a look, I think I said this before, but if you take a look at his career fielding stats, he was a -11 at shortstop last season. He was a -0.4 this season, but I'm gonna guess that he's gonna stay at the meet, because even then he was a -3 at shortstop that year, and he only had that was at third base, but he hasn't really been super impressive defensively for us anyway. He's been pretty mediocre. He's not the Jonathan VR of real baseball. And we also are giving up Malik Smith. We talked about him earlier, and we're giving up 2 prospects. Jeremy Edens is a guy that the OSA ratings like a little bit. He's a pretty versatile defensive player. He's projected to have good gap power and discipline and contact, but I don't really think we need third base and infield prospects that much. I think we're okay in terms of our infield prospects. We have a couple guys down in the minors, as well as the guys we have at who I don't even know who plays second base for us, but the guy we have at third base currently, who is blocking him, is better than he is, and this guy's outfield ratings I don't think are very good. Yeah, his outfield ratings are worse than his infield ratings, so actually his range is a little bit better, but he's been trained to be a third baseman, and I don't really like his stats. I like the hitting stats, but I don't think they're anything super special that we can't find in a different prospect. He was our 6th-round pick in the first draft we did, because we've only done 2. So that's that. And I should say the OSA likes him, but our scout thinks he's not going to turn into anything. So that factors into my decision as well. And Cody Sturgeon's another guy that the OSA likes, but the head scout doesn't like. He's a projected first base prospect, even though he doesn't have very good infield ratings anyway. He's pretty bad at the outfield too. And it says he's actually a better pitcher than anything else, but he had... Okay, so I don't know. I've never seen this happen before. He's a good defensive pitcher, but he doesn't have any pitches at all. They're all bad. So I guess he must have been like a former pitcher or something. But the OSA, well, actually, we can take a look at the head scout. And okay, so the head scout thinks he could be a really bad pitcher. Okay, so that makes sense. But the OSA really likes this guy. I think he's going to have above average ratings across the board. Contact gap are 55, power 60, eye 60, avoid Ks is 50. So he's a pretty average player. He's a minor league free agent signing, and our head scout doesn't like him as much, though. He does not as high on his ratings panning out. He also really doesn't have a defensive position because his everything in the infield is really kind of bad. So that's not a guy I mind throwing in this trade. And then we got Jorge Lopez, who we acquired last season from Montreal, and he's above average in every category, but he didn't really pan out for us the way that I had hoped he would. He was moved to the bullpen toward the end of the year and struggled immensely. As you can see, he allowed a run in every single one of these except for the last one. and I don't think his peripheral numbers were much better. He did have a good start to the year with Montreal. When we acquired him, he was playing very well, but he's not a guy that I'm absolutely keen on holding on to, thinking that he can turn things around. Okay, so our return in this is Luis Guillorme, who has better ratings, except for I think his home run power is worse. He has better hitting ratings than Jonathan VR, or at least comparable, and he is an elite shortstop in 80. He has 75 range, 75 error, 70 infield arm, and 75 turn double play. So he's definitely a shortstop by itself. And he has like decent minor league hitting numbers, and he played very well in the 17 plate appearances he had for the Mets this season. But I'm really banking on his defense just being a value for us this season. I don't think that anything else is really going to give us value. I mean, I like the stats that he has, but as we saw, it didn't really pan out very much in the minors. Although he had a 354 OBP and 368 OBP in AA a couple seasons ago. But he's gotten promoted at the end of every year, so I think that he's major league ready. 24 years old. We also have Yu Darvish, who was signed as a free agent by the Mets. This is a little bit trickier of a deal because he's listed as a reliever right now, even though he has 70 stamina. He has another season after this under contract, so we might have to move some money around, although I think with a lot of the guys that we've traded so far, they've been ARB eligible, so I think we're already saving a little bit of money anyway. He does have a team option on the end of this deal, though, and if he is still valuable by the end of that contract, that could become a very, very good salary for a guy like Yu Darvish, because we'll take a look at his pitching stats, getting a league average, if not a little bit above pitcher on a $12 million contract is about like market value, if not even a little bit more than market value. But if you take a look at his ratings, he had a really good year for New York last year after a couple of three really kind of bad seasons for Texas in a row, if you're counting 2014 as well. But he hasn't really been the same pitcher since returning from injury. His Ks per 9 has definitely went down. His walk rate is pretty stagnant at this point, but he did have a 109 whip, and I think with all the defensive improvements that we really made to the team this offseason, I think that he will definitely find some success for us. He has a plethora of good above average at the very least pitches. He has a good fastball, curveball, slider, and then the cutter, changeup, splitter are also pretty decent. He has 55 control as well. So, and if he's not, and like I said, if he's not an effective pitcher, he only has 2 more years under contract. So it would pretty much be like we signed Yu Darvish for 2 years out of free agency. So, we definitely have the money to do this. And if we do this, if this trade is accepted, then I'm going to withdraw our offer to Cole Hamels, because we're actually going to be like one pitcher over like what we need. Because we have, right now as it is, we have Hisashi, Taiwan Walker, Lucas Giolito, Wei-Yin Chen, and Trevor Bauer, which with Yu Darvish would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'd have 6 starters potentially, although Wei-Yin Chen, doesn't have the ratings that he once did. He could probably sit in the minors and be an effective pitcher in the minor leagues. I'm not super high on him. He was a 1-year deal anyway, after all. So, definitely a trade I think we're going to go through with. If New York will accept it, I just want to see if there's anybody who will immediately, if I take Jorge Lopez out, if there's anybody who immediately makes this trade work. I don't think there will be, but we could do John Moscott instead of Jorge Lopez, and they like that. They like John Moscott more. We can hold on to Jorge Lopez then. That's Cody Sturgeon. If they like John Moscott more, I'd definitely rather give up John Moscott. He is above average, definitely. He had a really solid minor league campaign for us after we demoted him. He started 7 games for us, had okay stats, weren't the greatest. 5.66 ERA is definitely not very good. He actually really didn't even have that great of a year from Montreal, but he had a 119 whip. I'm definitely going to throw him in that trade, though, instead. Definitely holding on to Jorge Lopez would be beneficial for our team. So, all right, let's do this. Luis Guillorme and Yu Darvish. And so now we have received a message. People probably don't like that we traded away Malik Smith and Jonathan Villar, even though Malik Smith only played for like 7 games for us. I think that's better overall, though, for the team. I think having better defensive players is going to pan out more in the long run. So let's go to rosters and transactions. And now that we completed this trade, we're probably going to be withdrawing our offer to Cole Hamels, even though it was just a 1-year deal. So Yu Darvish, Guillorme, and Almora on the roster. We're a couple spots over right now, so I'm just shaping up the rotation for the next season. We definitely want to start with at least with Giolito in the major leagues. And this is an interesting conundrum. I'm gonna go with Iwakuma over Wei and Chen for now. And we still have a couple guys we're waiting on signing in free agency. I think we still have our offer out to Aroldis Chapman. So shortstop, we're gonna put in Guillorme, and I'll do all this lineup stuff before we get into the regular season. I just want to make sure that my depth chart is updated so I know what we are pursuing. So Gong is okay at shortstop and third base. I was debating whether to put Prado in as our backup third baseman or not, but I think he's fine as, well, actually he's not very good in right. I didn't think about that. He's not very good in right field, but oh, so I didn't put Trace Thompson in. Where's Trace Thompson? Yeah, I'm gonna put Trace Thompson in right field. So we have improved it every position defensively. Now the only weak spots we really have, I want to flip Rivera and Vallet though, because Vallet only starts like every 4th or 5th game, so we can progress him but not suffer defensively. So I didn't want to copy the lineup, but we'll paste the depth chart. So this team's looking a lot better defensively anyway. I think that's going to pay off in the long run. Like I said about 15 times at this point, as somebody's calling me, but I'm not going to answer it right now. So it's one of those calls that you can't just turn down. Alright, well, you can turn it down with the power button. I forgot. So I don't remember who started for right field in us last year, or in right field for us last year. I know it was Braxton Davidson toward the end of the season, but I think it was like Preston Tucker to start out. So getting a couple of more solid players, I think, is going to help us. We were a wild card team last year, but with 15th in defensive, we have a lot of talent for a team that's only been in the league for 4 years. And we don't have a very strong farm system, so I think trading for a few younger guys is definitely beneficial because it will hold off the weak farm system for as long as possible. So I'm going to go back to the Offseason Center, and we're going to check out the free agents again. I was looking right there at the good defensive center fielders. I found them. So we still have, so Cole Hamels was actually, he was on the Mets last year too, so he was effective last season, and the season before that. But I think, see, now I don't know, because we don't have a left-hander. He's also a better clubhouse guy. We could really, realistically keep Giolito in the minors for another season because he didn't play the greatest. See, now, this is interesting. This is an interesting situation to find ourselves in. And Giolito could potentially benefit from being in the minor leagues, but he already has 2.5 years of major league experience. So I don't really know if that would necessarily be the best idea. I want to sign Cole Hamels because I'll leave my offer to Cole Hamels. It's a 1-year deal, and we don't have to worry really about. Did I sign? I thought I signed Hisashi for 1 year. Oh, vesting. Okay, I did give him that dumb vesting option. That's not gonna vest because I'm gonna pull him probably at the end of the year. If he is bad. If he's not, then I'll also sign this guy. This guy's good. See, I haven't played in a couple of days, so I forgot now. Alright, so we still have Aroldis, we still have Hector Rondon, and we still have Cole Hamels. So I'll let you guys know, I'm going to leave that offer to Cole Hamels because it doesn't hurt to have him in the organization for a 1-year deal, even though he went 2-9 2 years ago. Wow, he was god-awful for the Texans, or for the Rangers that year. That's bad. But he's been really good the last couple years, it looks like. Although he played a lot out of the bullpen the last couple years too. So I want to know, is there starter versus reliever splits? As starter. So I think this is just 2018 though. As a starter, he had a 124 whip. That's not very good. 303 BABIP, 390. It's not gonna have his. Whoops. So if I do it this way, splits. It doesn't have the splits for. Alright, so that's something to keep in mind though. He was a better reliever than starter. Oh, he didn't play very much in relief though, it doesn't look like. More effective reliever, it looks like. Oops. So as a starter, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to go back to just the regular season. So better pitcher in night game. Oh no, better pitcher in day games. Wait, what am I? It's duh. I'm on extended pit or expanded stats too. All right, so he was better in night games. I don't know if that really means a whole lot. Last year, 112 whip. Man, he has really gotten hit hard in the postseason. Now I'm not 100% certain, but you know, we have the money, whatever. We can always keep him on as a long guy or a middle reliever too. I went through all this crap. Alright. So we still have Hector Rondon and Aroldis Chapman pending. We can always keep Cole Hamels as a good reliever. And Hector Rondon is fragile, so it's good to still have guys in the minor leagues. Just hold on to. He didn't have the greatest season last year either. I don't know how he's fragile. He's pitched 60 innings the last 3 seasons. But we'll take a look at our pitching staff. We do have, so basically have three guys who are like 7th and later. Bearclaw, Segrist, and then the other 2 guys, Rondon, and we'll have Cole Hamels probably in the bullpen. It's not a bad team. Not a bad team at all. A little short on left. Well, no, we have 3 lefties in the bullpen then, so I actually wouldn't be short on lefties. I think we'll have another spot open. I'm just taking a look at this right now. I'm not sure how many relievers I'm going to carry versus hitters yet, so that'll be interesting to see. I think we're screwed though if like Trace Thompson gets hurt. We have nobody to play right field. Alright, so we are back after the Rule 5 draft that we just completed. We drafted that first baseman. And it's been a couple of days since I played, so I'm trying to remember exactly where I left off. But I was simming a little bit ahead. I was going to sim to the Hall of Fame voting results. And then we got the news that Cole Hamels and Hector Rondon have both signed with the team. So we will head now to the roster screen. And we will finally be able to set our team for the upcoming season. And we have a full 40 man. So let me see who we can take off of here. And I'm not 100% sure, honestly. Rivera seems like a guy we could waive in DFA. Good defensive player, but alright, we'll waive in DFA Vicente Rivera. And we will put Hector Rondon on the roster. But pitching wise, We are not going to have Ishikawa on the team. It is going to be Hector Rondon, and Cole Hamels will be in middle relief, and his secondary role will be long relief. I think we're good in terms of that. I need to also set somebody. Oh, did I want to set Rondon as? No, I don't think I did. No, I wanted to keep him as a middle reliever because he's a really big risk. We do need an 8th inning guy, though. I don't know who that's going to be. But I think we're set right now. So we can get rid of... Well, Wei and Chen we're going to keep because we signed him. But he can be put in like the minor leagues or something. And we can also use Cole Hamels as a starter. I think I showed his splits before. But he was a much better reliever than starter, even though he only pitched 31 innings. He had a 2.27 ERA, a 1.11 WHIP, and a 33-7 strikeout to walk ratio in 31 2/3 innings. So that's definitely a very good sign in terms of peripheral numbers. He's also 34 years old, and for $6 million, I think that he can be a good hybrid guy. We can put him in long relief potentially too, and so yeah. And we can probably put a couple of these guys as like avoid high leverage. I cannot believe that Kevin Segrist pitched 104 innings of relief last year. That is ridiculous. Oh, he's pitched 104 plus innings. I probably knew this already. I'm just fascinated by it now for some reason. He's been okay. Not great, but he's been okay. Definitely not going to be mad because this is probably going to be his last year with the team. But I'm not going to be upset by that in any way, shape, or form. But, yeah, so now those guys have signed. Our team is pretty much set. We have a few guys who are going to miss the roster. Like, Martin Prado is probably going to end up in the minor leagues. Even though he has really good contact and decent avoid K ratings, he doesn't really fit in with what we need on the team right now. Although I think we do need another bench bat. Oh, I put Edward Garcia in here already. I think I'm missing somebody on the roster. Hold on. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're only carrying 11 pitchers for some reason. Must be somebody I wanted to hold on to. Alright, 11 pitchers. And then 21, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, okay, our roster seems like we're short on a bench bat, but I guess we have 2 infielders, an outfielder, and a catcher. Oh, it's because of DH. So we have the DH too. Okay, that's what I was. That's why I was kind of overlooking. We have an extra bench bat because our DH doesn't play a position. All right, or can't play a position like we can't swap him as a DH. Like he is just always DH. So that is why is Hector Rondon's name capital? I don't understand why. Like, I didn't do anything to it, but yeah, I think this team is pretty much set for this year. We should have a good backup rotation too. All right, I'm gonna sim to the Hall of Fame voting. All right, so we are at the Hall of Fame voting results, and nobody made the Hall of Fame this year. Jim Thome, in his second year on the ballot, got 70.5%. Clemens got the same amount. Barry Bonds at 69, so it's looking like he might eventually make it. Mariano Rivera in his first year got 69. He's probably going to get in soon. Vladimir Guerrero, probably at some point during this series, is going to get into the Hall of Fame. Bagwell's looking like he's going to miss at 66. Helton got 62 in his first year, and then after that, everybody's under 50. I'm surprised Roy Halladay didn't get over 50%. But Edgar Martinez got dropped. A couple of other guys down here. Fred McGriff, who I don't think ever got over 8%. And then a few guys like Derek Lowe, Roy Oswalt down here, who are probably more middle-of-the-road players. Andrew Jones got dropped in his second year on the ballot. And Jeff Kent got dropped in his 6th year on the ballot. So that's how that looks out. We tried to claim this guy off of waivers as well. I was checking the waiver wire, and this guy was really good. The Washington Nationals waived him. I don't know why. He was a really good reliever, but a team jumped us in the waiver order, so we are not going to get him. That would have been an interesting wrinkle in our bullpen this year. He probably wouldn't have played in the majors, but he would have been definitely a piece that we could utilize down the road. So I'm going to keep simming, and I'll get back to you guys in just a moment. All right, so one more thing that I kind of forgot that hadn't actually been solved yet is Aroldis Chapman. We were going back and forth with the Giants on him, so we ended up paying him a little bit more than I had intended to originally. He is going to be making $11.06 million this next 2 seasons. I think originally I offered him like $9 million. So they did drive up the price a little bit, but we do have him for the next 2 years. I'm a little concerned because I didn't realize his control was so low, but he's probably going to be our... That was the reason I didn't have 2 setup men. Originally, I didn't have 2 setup men in the bullpen. I was kind of wondering. It seemed a little strange, but I'm trying to figure out who we're going to get rid of, and it's actually probably going to be Kevin Segrist, even though he's been pretty solid for the last few years. I keep clicking that button on accident. He is definitely the guy who would probably go first. So I'm going to clear out this roster a little bit with some guys that we don't need necessarily, like Jairo Diaz. Oh, he's actually pretty good. Why is he just never pan out for us? Oh, no, I claimed this guy off waivers from apparently Milwaukee. I don't remember why he was on Milwaukee, but he actually looks pretty good. Probably not a guy I need on the 40-man, but... Oh, here's a guy we can take off. Ryan Tepera. Trace and Shreves really only got 2 stars. Oh, alright. Actually, we'll just cut Ryan Tepera because he's going to keep auto-renewing as long as he's in our organization. So, we'll just cut him completely. He's not very good anyway. And then we will add Aroldis Chapman to the 40-man. And he is going to be our closer for this next season, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to take a look at Chasen Shreves' stats really quick. That's fielding. I don't want that. 117 whip, which isn't the greatest. 261 FIP, though. Strikeout to walk ratio was really pretty good. But I think he'll be fine as a setup man. I was trying to figure out, because... Well, actually, Aroldis Chapman only wants to be in the bullpen. He doesn't even want to be. He doesn't expect to be a closer. So, let's start the year with Aroldis Chapman in setup, along with Osuna. He expects to be a closer. He's not going to be a closer, though. He is pretty good, but he's not better than the other 2 guys that we have. Not as of right now, anyway. He hasn't proven it for us. And we'll put both of these guys... setup options as 7th or later. And is there anything else? No, I think we're good. Okay, so I think, did I do my math right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I counted Dustin Ackley twice last time. All right, so now our roster is set, and we have quite a few new faces compared to last year. The top 5 in our batting order is still the same, but that 6, 7, 8 spot are all 3 new faces for our team, and then in the pitching staff, our 3 and 4 starters are recent additions, and we pretty much completely revamped the bullpen. We have 3 out of our 7 bullpen guys coming in are free agents, so it's going to be a very different looking bullpen than it was last year, which is good because I thought our bullpen was pretty god-awful. So let's I'll keep simming, and we can go over everything in a moment. So here's a minor waiver move that we made because I've been checking the waiver wire throughout the offseason to see if there are any interesting names, and there have been a couple good guys so far. This guy is a guy who we could use for depth, though, in the minors. I'm thinking that he could be, he's not projected to be anything super special, but all of his ratings are in the 55s and 60s. Like, those are the, like, out of those 2. And he had a rough go of things in the MLB level, but I think that's a lot of the reason is because he jumped straight from AA to 7 1/3 of innings of Major League Ball last season. But his stats weren't too terrible in the minors the last couple of seasons. In high A, he had a 120 whip and a 2.94 ERA, and then this last season he went 13-2 in AA with a 3.18 ERA and a 120 whip. So he could definitely be a depth option for us. He's not going to be a big piece or anything, but he's a depth option that we just got for pretty much free. We're going to have to figure out who is going to be taken off the 40-man. I'll try and show some of these more of these roster moves that are a little less like important, because they might become important down the road for some of these guys. Starling Peralta. We signed this guy just now, didn't we? Yeah, okay. So we won't get rid of him. We won't take him off the roster. I didn't realize he was 28 years old. Who's the guy who we're not going to do anything? I forgot we have the Steven Johnson guy we just signed, too. He's a guy who we can keep in the minors, though. He hasn't pitched in the majors yet in his career, I don't think. And, oh, I never brought Shea Simmons up. Oh, because I was going to trade him because he's actually already declining, which is not a good sign. He didn't have a very good stretch in the minor leagues, and he was horrendous at the major league level. I mean, he had a good ERA+, but he had 19 walks in 36 innings, and he only had 8.8 Ks per 9, which if you're going to walk 5 batters per 9 innings, you have to have a higher strikeout rate than that. So that's a guy who I actually want to see what we can get for him now. Here, I'm going to waive and DFA him, but I want to see if we can trade him, like what we could possibly get. But he'll be the guy we take off the roster because I'm going to get rid of him anyway. He's a fine depth option, but I think he can maybe fetch us something useful in return, like a decent level prospect. Maybe. I don't know. Mike Morin, is that a decent guy? Jared Parker, Archimedes Caminero might be the guy we have to go for, although he is arbitration eligible and he wouldn't pitch for us in the majors, I don't think. He was really good with Cleveland last year, and the year before that, actually. After it looks like he got traded at the deadline from the Pirates. I don't know if I want to take on that salary, though. What's Mike Morin looking like? He's ARB eligible, too, and he actually is a little bit more expensive. And he's also much worse, but, well, no, it's not even a product of playing in Colorado, because he had a arguably just as bad season 2 years ago. He actually probably was even worse because he had a higher walk rate. But that's not a guy that we are interested in. What about Charlie Furbush? Yeah, no, he's a little too expensive for my tastes. Jared Parker is definitely not very good at this point, so that'll be the guy that we take off the roster, though, because Shea Simmons is declining, and we did trade, I think, I think we traded something like useful for him, too. Oh no, we just traded Hyun-Soo Kim, who played in AAA last year and had a 126 OPS plus after being horrendous for us the year before, if I remember correctly. We signed him because he was doing pretty good. We traded for him at the deadline the year before, and he had a pretty good season for us. So we signed him to a deal, like a 2-year deal, and he was just horrendous in more plate appearances for us. I don't even remember how we got him originally. It's been a while, so 100% certain as to when that was. But, I mean, cutting Shea Simmons now, it's not like we gave up anything that was absolutely valuable or anything. So, if no one claims him, that's cool. And if somebody does, it's fine too. Alright, let me cut out once again. So again, in adventure scouring the waiver wire, we found this guy, Kervin Mosket, who lacks home run power, but he has really good hitting ratings, and he's a pretty good defensive player as well. And this guy is more than likely just going to be a trade chip for us, but he has 4-star potential. I want to see what the OSA thinks. He's a 3-star guy. Totally understandable. Really good defensive player already. He might be a good backup down the road or something. But we do need to clear a spot on the 40-man for this guy. And I've been messing around with this lately, so should be easy to find somebody who can just easily be taken off. I think Matt Reynolds is probably the leading candidate, or Heath Hembry. He was pretty good actually at Saratoga last year, so if we need him to be a depth option, he's going to be a guy who gets an early call up. Matt Reynolds is a guy that I don't need though, because I just don't need him. Wave and DFA. And we will put Kervin Mosket on our 40. And we will also demote him to AAA. Alright, so again, I hate to keep saying this, but I will be right back. So as I was simulating toward the end of spring training to try and get an idea of what our roster is going to look like and show you guys the pitching rotation and the lineups and everything, I got a personal message, and this is one of our scouting discoveries. We recently hired a new scout. I can't even remember what his name is, but Dan Petrie. This is his guy, and he's excellent at scouting international and outstanding in amateurs. So I'm going to take his word for it. But he just brought back this guy, Angel Gomez. 5-star potential, 70 contact potential, 70 gap power potential, 80 home run power potential. And currently he's obviously 40, 35, and 35, far from a finished product. He's only 16 years old, 60 days. And actually his birthday falls in the offseason, so that's pretty nice. But this guy's younger than me, too. Well, I guess that would make sense. He's 16, I'm 18. But he's obviously far from a finished product at this point. He also is a little concerning because his discipline's decent, not great, his eye discipline, and his avoid Ks is only 45 potential, so that's a little bit concerning. But other than that, this guy is an absolute gem, and this is like the third time in this series, and it's made up for lackluster drafts that we've had up to this point. But this is like the third time in this series that somebody has come over from the international market and been like a stud prospect for us. So that's really, really exciting. We'll take a look at the some of the other guys who are on our prospects list really quick, and then I'll get back into simulating the rest of this so we can wrap this up since this off season is like over 2 hours. But take a look at our top prospects. Aguilar was a scouting discovery, I'm pretty sure. And why is he still? I thought I moved him back out to the outfield, but wow, he already has 65 gap power. That's pretty good. Or did I want to keep him in the infield? Oh, yeah, I did want to make him a first baseman because he has that elite infield range. Alright, so I did want to make him a first baseman. So Jerry Aguilar, I clicked away from him. He was a scouting discovery. He's a 5-star prospect, and he's still developing, hopefully. Davidson, we picked in the expansion draft. Correa was a international free agent signing. So I guess that could factor in. I thought we had another guy, too, who was found. Maybe it was just Jerry Aguilar. But yeah, all right. I guess it was just Jerry Aguilar. But that's 2 stud prospects that we found, both first basemen. So that might be a little bit odd going forward. Although we could always move him to second base. He has a little bit of experience there. I'm trying to think, who do we have at second base currently? I haven't played this in like a week, so second base. Oh, we have Ricardo Cantu. Okay, yeah, I see why I moved him to first base then. But I think that's still a very good thing to have, even if this guy is used as just a piece in a trade later on down the line where you can get like an elite player or something. Why was I in my manager history? Oh, I think I was looking up how many years because it said I was in my 4th year. But yeah, so that's really good. We got him, and now I'm going to cut out again so we can get moving once more and maybe finally get toward the end of this. I really wanted to get better value for these guys, but I couldn't find a better trade than this. We're going to get a 4-star prospect out of this, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 4-star guy. Pretty much already panned out batting-wise. He can still improve a little home run power and eye discipline, but he's got a really good center field. So, it's something. He's a prospect, at least. And Sean Reed Foley, who can turn into a solid starter, it looks like. He's a little bit of ways away, but he's not too far. I'll probably pitch in AAA for us. And in exchange, I should have set up this trade a little bit better. This is where we're going to be getting rid of Scott Van Slyke and Ryan Schimpf. I thought for a second about keeping Scott Van Slyke, but he wants $7 million a year, and I do not want to pay $7 million a year for Scott Van Slyke. And Ryan Schimpf is going to get more expensive too, $4.6 million next year. And I think I'd rather go with the defensive-heavy lineup coming into this season rather than the offense. So we're going to get rid of Scott Van Slyke and Ryan Schimpf. We're also going to give up Cisco Tellez, who's 26 years old and not very good. He's okay hitting, but he's terrible defensively, and not even very good hitting-wise anyway. And then Wei-Yin Chen, who isn't going to make our rotation. He had a 9.64 ERA in spring training, and outside of this like one performance right here, he was kind of not very good. Like he didn't have a great spring training, and we actually really didn't even play him toward the end. But well, that'll free up a little bit of money. Not that we were going to use it for anything anyway, but Wei-Yin Chen, Scott Van Slyke, Ryan Schimpf, Cisco Tellez for Reggie Pruitt and Sean Reed Foley. I am a little hesitant to trade these guys to the Blue Jays of all teams because the Blue Jays are like the best team in the AL right now. But this is really just a salary dump, and none of these guys are awesome or like particularly great players anyway. They offer offense, and that's it. And Wei Yin Chen's just depth. So this is the trade we are going to complete, and we'll be able to finalize our 25-man roster based on that. I sent down. I guess send you to AAA. Oh, I gotta add him to the 40 first. We'll place on secondary roster, and we'll put him in AAA. And I'm gonna do all the AAA and stuff in the like that management off screen, because right now we have that's the wrong screen. That's also the wrong screen. I screwed that up, my bad. We only have 30 players in AAA. They might have auto-managed it for me, but I sent pretty much everybody who was on our roster that wasn't going to make it down to AAA, and I didn't think about like AA or anything like that, even though some guys have never been higher than AA. This is our bullpen. Our pitching rotation. We got Taijuan Walker, Trevor Bauer, Yu Darvish, Hisashi Iwakuma, and Lucas Giolito. It's going to be our 5 going into the year. And we're going to start with Taijuan Walker against his former team, ironically enough. And then we have 4 lefties in the bullpen. We're going to see how this works out. But we got Kevin Seagrist, Cole Hamels, who I'm also going to put in as a long reliever. I put as a secondary role. But we're going to see how he performs out of the bullpen. And if he does really well and there's a pitching injury or if someone underperforms, then we might put him in the starting rotation. Hector Rondon, Kyle Bearclaw as middle relievers. And then our setup guys are going to be Roberto Osuna and Aroldis Chapman. And I gave Chasen Shreve the closer role because he performed very well in that role last year. We do have 2 other very good options on roster in case that does not work out, though. So looking pretty forward to that. I think our pitching is going to be really solid this year. Maybe not excellent, but we can at least be middle of the pack with our pitching. And we improved our defense so much that I think that can really honestly be a strength of our team this year, which it has not been at any point, even though our first winning season was last year. But I think this could be our first very good season. Catcher, we have Rene Rivera, but every 4th game we're going to be starting Chase Vallett, trying to develop him a little bit into a better bat. He's already improved at catcher. I don't know why he has time at third base, but he's already improved at catcher. He's up to a 55, and if he can get a little bit better hitting-wise, like if he can perform pretty much the same way he did last year, I think he'll be a pretty league-average catcher, honestly, and better than anything we can do currently. Eudor Garcia won the spot in spring training. He kind of tailed off at the end, but he had an 825 OPS for most of spring training and some limited action. But I expect him to turn it to pretty much be what Van Slyke was for us last year. A pretty solid hitter, but he's more of a cost control guy, and he's going to be definitely the spot that we're going to look at throughout the season. Keep an eye on Ricardo Cantu. Obviously, it was an elite talent last year, 6-win player, 862 OPS. He didn't have the greatest spring training in the world, but hopefully he can put it together during the season. He's 29, so he's going to be on the decline. We'll have to keep an eye on that, and still has quite a few years left on his contract. So hopefully things still work out with him. Yammer Candelario, third baseman, played pretty well, or actually played pretty poorly this spring training, but played pretty well the last 2 seasons. 832 OPS followed by an 861 OPS. A little bit tailed off a bit defensively, but made strides offensively. Hopefully he can bounce back at third base this year. Shortstop of the newly acquired Luis Guillorme. Very good defensively. He is going to be a rookie this season, but he has decent hitting ratings. He avoids strikeouts. Does not hit for very much power at all, but he is good at getting on base. And he's only 24 years old, so we'll see what happens with him. Braxton Davidson I decided to give the spot over Ryan Schimpf because he actually has better hitting ratings and he's younger. And we did kind of screw up in terms of his service time because we promoted him a little bit earlier last year, but I don't think anybody expected him to perform the way he did. Even though he was a 5-win player at the AAA level, he hadn't really had a track record of success in the minor leagues. And for him to have a 1080 OPS and 133 plate appearances, which isn't very many, but still is very notable, and have an almost identical strikeout to walk ratio. I don't think anybody expected this year out of Braxton Davidson that he had last year, but we'll see how he performs over the course of a full season. The newly acquired Albert Almora will be manning center field. He still has a little bit of improvement to make. He can get better in most of these hitting categories, but he's very good defensively. and he had a pretty decent hitting year in, again, very limited plate appearances. But I'm really banking more on his great defense in center field more than anything else. We tried the same thing with Joey Ricard, but it just didn't work out. We got Trace Thompson here, an elite defensive outfielder with decent hitting ratings. He also had an 823 OPS and 196 plate appearances. We're betting a lot on small sample sizes with this lineup, but I'm really banking more on defense than the offense or anything. Plus, Trace Thompson's base running adds to his value, so that's good. And then for our DH, we have Wilmer Flores, who led the league in at-bats, not plate appearances. He led the league in plate appearances last year, but he's been improving every single year, and hopefully he can continue to provide us with a couple wins. He's on a pretty good contract, $6 million a year, and he was a 4-win player last year, which is just an absolute bargain. That's $1.5 million a win, and the conventional wisdom goes you pay about $7 million for a win, but that was obviously a $1.5 million was quite the value for that. So anyway, that's going to do it for this offseason. I know it dragged on a little long, and I looked over the lineups a few too many times. I'll quickly go over the backups. So we got Dustin Ackley manning first, second, and left field. We have Young Ho Kong at third and shortstop, and then Joey Ricard will continue to be our outfield backup. He is probably in his last season with the team, unless he can perform at some sort of high level in a backup role. He's been terrible the last 2 seasons. Like, the first season he wasn't very good, but he had played excellent defense. The last 2 years he's just been injured. And I'm surprised that his health status is still okay and he's not fragile at this point, because he's sustained major injuries both of the last 2 seasons. But we'll see how it works out. So that's our backups. But I know I dragged this out a little too long. I looked at the lineups about 7 times too many, but we'll be getting into the mid-season next episode, and I will let you guys know at about the halfway point how everyone's doing and see if we need to make any changes to the team, or if we're just going to be out of the race, if we're going to be a title contender, what the status is going to be at the mid-season. I'm going to do my minor league management, and I will update you guys on that next episode. But for now, we will see you next time for more OOTP 17 Vancouver Canadians expansion franchise.